Hey guys, Chrono here. I just want to say I'm very, very, very sorry for how long this has taken me to get out. It's just been madness. I've been absolutely swamped with school. It's been a nightmare. But finals are over. Everything's good. I'm all fine. I'm alive. Nothing's happened. It's all good. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into GTA 5, shall we? Grand Theft Auto 5 is a game about gangsters, or possibly a critique about the American ideal, or possibly about the cathartic effects of virtual violence, or possibly about yoga. It's really hard to tell sometimes. For me though, Grand Theft Auto 5 was a lot of looking up various technical issues on Google. My menu frame rate was far lower than my in-game frame rate. My FPS was way lower than should be reasonable for my hardware. The level of detail was far too low to be reasonable outside of about 5 feet. I wanted to see if there was any way to save cars in single player like you can in multiplayer. I wanted to find out why the Hydra wasn't spawning at the military base. I wanted to know why Rockstar Games did not want my money. And finally, I looked up the Grand Theft Auto 5 cheat list, at which point I turned on invincibility, explosive ammo, and super jump. I then drove over to Fort Zancudo and destroyed literally everything that moved. But I think I may have skipped ahead a bit, so let's go back. GTA 5 is about 3 characters, who I'll get into in a moment. It takes place in the rather large island of Los Santos. For the first few hours, missions will limit you to the southern, more urban half of the city, but later on you'll move into Blaine County, which is the desert half with a serious redneck infestation. The world more or less divides itself into zones that become more and more recognizable as you play, which, while incredibly minor and probably inconsequential for gameplay, it does make the world feel a lot more real to me. Instead of Mount Chiliad, I remember it as that one place that you can skydive down to the highway from. Los Santos is a great location with loads of intricacies and opportunities for mayhem. The creators of this chaos are the 3 main characters, Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. Each character has their own story, which I won't get into too much in this video because I think it's more fun to find these things out on your own. Each character also has their own unique power, which mostly relates to their backstory and personality. Michael can slow time when shooting, giving him the sort of action movie star feeling when you can slow down time and headshot everybody in the room with a suppressed pistol before they can even move. Franklin used to repossess cars for a somewhat shady car dealer, so his ability is slowing down time while driving and increasing control, which fits his character quite well and is actually fairly fun to do. Trevor's ability is, as far as I can tell, just a damage boost. From what I can tell, it's instant kill, though admittedly I only used fairly high damage rifles when I tested it. This instant kill ability fits his character really quite well since he's kind of a psychopath. In fact, out of all the characters in the game, I found Trevor the least interesting because he was just so monstrous. He'd say he'll give you everything you want the 1 minute and then take your life away the next. There's a point in the game where Trevor finds someone who he genuinely cares about, and when they're taken away from him, I found myself smiling. Finally, something had brought him down from his smug little world of manipulation and meth. While I may dislike the character, I'm not afraid to say that his voice actor is kind of amazing, probably my favorite actor in the game. His whole crazy behavior thing wouldn't work if someone like me, for example, were to voice him. His actor sells his character better than Billy Mays can sell OxyClean. That's not to sell the other actors short, of course. Franklin's actor sounds just as fed up with Lamar as I was, and Michael is a perfect middle-aged white dude who'd rather be smoking a cigar right now. In fact, there are very few characters who I dislike the voice for. From the major characters in the FIB to the radio hosts who you can only hear on one side of the map, the quality of the characters kind of boggles my mind when you start to look at the quality of the graphics. This game is only 3 years old, and honestly, it hasn't aged all that well. The footage you'll see in the background is on mostly ultra settings, but there are some clips that are on absolute minimum settings just to see what kind of frame rate I could get. On ultra I get between 40 and 60 FPS, on the lowest settings I get between 50 and 70. Honestly, I'm tempted to keep the settings at medium because the game doesn't look that good anyway. For reference, I can run Black Ops 3, which looks far better to me on ultra at a constant 75 FPS, 0 dips, and I'm pretty sure there's a frame rate cap in the game that I just haven't bothered to turn off. I get that optimizations had to happen to get this large of a world on the PlayStation and Xbox, and I also admit that my processor is only a Core i5, but the object and the terrain pop-in is absolutely absurd and horribly immersion breaking. Alright, Chrono, I hear you say. Shut up about the graphics, I care about gameplay. Alright, fair enough. Well, if you've played a shooter made in the last decade, you'll be just fine. The controls are exactly what you'd expect from a third-person shooter. The driving feels really nice, provided you don't have an upgraded supercar. I'll get into that particular rant once I get to my GTA Online review. The only other quirk in the game is the controls for piloting aircraft. They have you use WASD for throttle and yaw, but to pitch and roll you need to use the 4, 5, 6, and 8 keys on your number pad as a sort of a second WASD. It's really weird and super irritating if you're trying to talk while flying. I have my push to talk key as a button on my mouse, which means that if I want to fly, then I can't use my mic. It also means that I can't look around while flying without being able to steer the thing. If I were in charge of this, I would have made the controls the same as they are in Arma 3. Shift and control for throttle, W and S for pitch, A and D for roll, Q and E for yaw. Boom! Aircraft piloting with one hand, leaving the other free to use the mouse. Control issues aside, the game plays well. Instant kills for headshots is immensely satisfying, and there's something special about throwing C4 at a passing police officer that just never fails to entertain me. There are a plethora of minigames scattered across the world that do not entertain me, however. If I wanted to play virtual tennis, I would break out my Wii, because then I could have my Darth Maul avatar duel my General Grievous avatar for a shot at the championship versus my Stormtrooper avatar, instead of hearing about how out of shape Michael is. I know a lot of people enjoy these games, particularly golf, but I'm just not really interested in them. However, I do appreciate that in certain parts of the storyline, doing these activities with specific characters gets you bonus dialogues that you couldn't hear otherwise. I think it's awesome when games do that. And how could I do an edition of Chrono Owns without talking about game design, specifically the way that this game separates single player and multiplayer? The short and sweet is that the single player is just a gimped version of the multiplayer. I'll go into this more in the multiplayer review, which I'll do eventually, but I really just wanted to express how frustrated I am about this. Basically, I have to choose between the single player game with a good story and a couple of features unique to single player, or the multiplayer version which has loads more to do. More vehicles, gang assaults, home ownership, a yacht for Christ's sake. I feel like if I want to play alone, I have to play the crappier version of the game because Rockstar will consistently update the multiplayer but not the single player. Don't get me wrong, it makes a ton of sense. That's where all the money is coming from after all. But if I want to fly a Hydra, drive around in an armored Kuruma, or have the sheer audacity to purchase a new car for my character, then I can't play single player, and that's infuriating. Honestly, it's kind of insulting. Why can't I play the full game without having to load multiplayer, which takes twice as long, by the way, then have to either keep finding new lobbies until I find an empty one, or just fight off other players just to do the things I want to do? If you've been paying attention, you know I think that GTA 5 is a good game. Not perfect, but good. However, I have a really hard time recommending people buy it for the single player because Rockstar would like nothing better than to shaft the single player in order to make the multiplayer better, and that just doesn't sit right with me. Thank you all very much for watching. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Feel free to share this channel, this video, whatever you think is right. My cat is clawing my bed. You stupid animal. Anyway, next week will be Rocket League, as per request from Poland Matt on my Discord server. So look forward to that. If you'd like to see a game after Rocket League, please let me know in the comments. My list of games is in the description. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.